Welcome to the Funny Books and Firewater podcast. Each week these idiots pair cocktails with comic books. You can find the cocktails, drinking game rules, and playlists on the blog at funnybooksandfirewater.com. While at funnybooksandfirewater.com, you can also find a drinking game rule to play while you listen to each episode. You can follow us at FirewaterCast on Twitter, and Funny Books and Firewater on Facebook and Instagram. This is episode 152, Incognito, part of the Brubaker and Phillips team-up month.
Inventory control analyst sucks. And, you know, I talk about everything at work, but what I actually do, because that's funny. And it's interesting. You're like, so what do you do? Well, at work, we do X, Y, Z, and J. It's like, oh, so... And they just make the assumption that's what I'm doing. And I'm like, no, I don't actually do any of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So this podcast comes up and we're like, oh, we've done 151. We're working on 152 episodes now. It's like, wow, that's so awesome. How do you make it happen? And then the response is, there's a number of friends that we always go, you know, we always need to keep in touch or we need a reason to do something. And this is the reason to make that happen and keep it going.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. I'm like, it's how I stay friends with, oh, yeah, that's a friend I talked to 3 years ago. And how do we prevent that from happening? And
exactly.
This is that right now.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I mean, since we're all, I mean, although that me and Jason are in the same state, we're in practically different states.
Yes.
with the traffic as it is. So it's sort of how it's like, you know, it's nice to get Jason looped in on this because it's the same sort of thing of like me being able to keep track of like, Todd and I mean me and Todd are doing pretty well talking to each other anyway, but like this definitely we talk a lot more frequently because of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Jason and Maya for sure. Not Jason and Maya, sorry, Adam and Maya for sure. I talked a lot more because of this, you know. So it's kind of, you know,
I will.
I
met Adam and Maya because of this show here, and it's been really cool. So
I will say for me, in addition to obviously Brian just being able to keep in touch with you more and by proxy meeting and talking to your friends, this has started for me in a period of my life which was probably the most difficult thing I've ever been through. And so being able to focus on this throughout the weeks and have something that requires a little bit of attention and just gets me to think outside of my personal circumstances. It's been a great resource for that.
It's almost like I strategically invited you at a very specific time in your life. It's almost like I thought about that beforehand when I said, hey, do you want to do a podcast with me?
And I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm happy to have you, actually. I mean, since we're, you know, jacking each other off right now anyway.
Yeah.
That is the great circle jerk.
It is a great circle jerk right now. No, I mean, I've told a lot of people that I think that Jason has added a lot to the show. I've told Todd that. I've told, you know, I mean, and Adam's told me that as well. And we've told our friend Lena that, who I invited later to be on the show today. And she was like, well, but I don't have the book for today. I'm like, I'm not saying today. I'm saying at some point in time, if you'd like to be on the show, you're more than welcome to do so. Because frankly, we're kind of a sausage fest.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I think Lena would actually be pretty fun on this because all I said is you need to have an opinion, and I might cut this out, but Lena has nothing about an opinion. So
Leave it in.
Okay.
Hi, Lena.
Love you, Lena, but yeah, you know I'm right. Well, welcome to episode 152 of the Funny Books and Firewater podcast. I don't know how much that circle jerk stayed in, but whatever. We had a mutual love fest here. If I cut it out, we were all loving on each other before we started, which is great. It's, you know, we're recording this post-Valentine's Day. That's how it goes. So this week, we're continuing on our month of Brubaker and Phillips books with a book called Incognito. We'll get into a little bit more details on that. We're a little bit small on the group this week, but we're small but mighty. Speaking of mighty, we have Mr. Jason.
Hi, I'm Jason, unemployed writer in Los Angeles. And until I get my next job, I've just been regaling you listeners with my previous exploits. This was maybe 8-9 years ago. I produced a music video for the band Shiny Toy Guns. It was a song called Rocket Ship. And the director of that video, Andrew Wong, has continued making music videos and recently did a bunch for Bjork and one for Sigur Rós.
Cool.
Oh, nice. I remember when you were working on that. You invited me to come be an extra and I couldn't get off work that day.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that was one. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't make that one. That's okay.
That's all right. You missed a robot falling in love, but it's all good.
I've seen the video. I watched it on YouTube. You sent me the link after the fact.
It's a fun one.
Speaking of a robot falling in love, we have Mr. Todd.
You know, that's all the introduction I need. Nothing else needs to be said. Thanks, guys. I'm going home. So, hey, I'm Todd. I'm here in Utah. Okay. You can find me here doing this podcast, showing up on time with our other timely panelists. That's right.
We are the timely panelists, actually.
Yeah, I'm going to stop that there. And then...
Okay. Haven't cut any of that out?
No, okay. Leave it in. Leave it in.
Okay.
And then I sometimes do another podcast called English Class Hooligans, where it's a voluntary book report on classic literature with the cat wrangler himself and my better half, Amy.
Yes.
Wait.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Amy. Now, the panelist that isn't here today would be Adam. He tried to. It didn't work out because of things, but he's got a new gig, and he's still working through the newness of that. We miss you, Adam. And Maya apparently is just having too much fun at amusement parks, and good for you, man. Everyone deserves a break.
Yeah. We were. Jason got to meet Maya in the flesh yesterday for the first time. We all went to the studios together.
So, with Maya, I'm trying to remember the exact first time I met him, but Maya's a great cat. I'm just going to give that. And he gets close in a hurry.
There was instant romance.
You know, he's the kind of guy that gives you a handshake and feels like, is he trying to finger me with his hand? And then he goes in for that hug and then his right foot wraps around your thigh, and you're like, this is an interesting guy, Maya.
Did
he do that to you, Jason?
I felt all warm yesterday. Yeah. Okay.
There you go. So it's good. But, Adam sometimes does another podcast, Bored as Hell, with our good friend Andy Wilson. Hi,
Andy.
I just did all of that preamble just to get that in, because...
I figured as much. Because you said the hi, Amy, and then you started introducing Adam. I'm like, oh, he's going for the hi, Andy.
That's what we do, because Andy's the man, and he deserves it.
Then Adam also does a show called Cinema Queens with Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hi.
Oh, and hi, I'm Brian. I was like, and moving on. Oh, wait, hi, I'm Brian. I'm a sound designer based out of Southern California, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff. It's not that interesting. No one can. I mean, really, unless you're 80, you're not really going to come see my shows anyway, because old people are the ones who go to see theater. That's how it goes. So that's fine. I understand that. So, and if you have blue hair and you're listening to the show, I want to meet you, because that's pretty awesome. And I meant blue hair in the old person way, not in the young punk way like Adam. So yeah. Cool. So this book is called Incognito. It's by Brubaker and Phillips, because all the books we're doing this month are by Brubaker and Phillips. Sean Phillips doing the art, and Brubaker doing the writing. And then there's a Val
Staples.
Staples? Yes. Because I saw with Staples, I thought, did Fiona Staples do the color on this? Which I thought would be really cool. No. But Val Staples is the colorist, which I feel like should be mentioned, because I think the coloring is actually pretty spectacular on this book. Mm-hmm. But the book Incognito, and correct me if I cover up anything wrong, is basically about a supervillain in the Witness Protection Progam who, for a brief period of time, becomes a superhero and gets his powers back, and hijinks ensue. That's the rough opening. Is there anything else that should be mentioned in there?
Feels good.
No. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Okay, cool. Todd, what is the myification for this book?
I guess I'm writing superheroes again.
I guess I'm writing superheroes again?
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, because I understand where you're going with that, because Brubaker has written a lot of famous superheroes, but for the last little while, most of what we've read has all been based on... it's been criminal type stuff.
It really is. I was reading in about it on Brubaker. He really got burnt out writing for the big two, and it's like, I can never do this again. Mm-hmm. And then he'd been doing criminal for a while, and the idea for this book kept propping into his mind. He's like, what the hell? I broke off on my own not to do this anymore, and yet here it is.
Also, I don't know about anybody else, but my copy has an introduction by Bill Hader, which I think is pretty interesting. These comedians are writing the introductions to these comic books, because last week's was Patton Oswalt, this week's Bill Hader. I just thought that was interesting. I don't know if anybody else noticed that.
Mine's got Brubaker itself. So I've got the Incognito, the classified
I got that
edition.
too.
So you have both volumes?
From the Icon Comics imprint.
Okay, so you have both volumes together then?
Yes.
Okay.
Single book.
Okay, so I have them both as two separate books. So, awesome. Well, then let's jump into drinking games. I'm going to go with mine just because I think it's funny.
Do it.
Hi ho, the Mario is my drinking game rule, and it's every time the name farmer is mentioned, take a drink. And mainly in the middle of the book, that's going to really fuck you up. Mr. Todd, what is your drinking game rule?
Drugs! Every time the use of drugs is mentioned or is consumed, take a drink.
Mr. Jason, what is yours?
Mine is called It's a Bird, It's a Plane. Oh, no, wait, it's just a Zeppelin. Anytime the word or name Zeppelin appears, take a drink.
Well, let's see. Let's jump into votes as to whether or not we believe it is worth you, our dear listeners, hard-earned time, money, and effort to go hunt this book down.
Now, I would love to hear Jason first because of the last book.
Yeah.
He was a little bit iffy.
It's true.
I'm actually a yes today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Todd.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm a yes, too. And in fact, I will say, when I first read this, I liked it. I liked it a lot more the second time around, but it's also been many years since I've read it, because when did this come out? I'm looking real fast. My copy says 2009, because I have mine. Mine's still actually published by Icon. I don't know if yours is published by Image or not.
It's
Ours
Icon.
is Icon as well.
It's Icon as well? Okay, so, but yeah, I have mine from 2009, which I think I bought it shortly after it came out because the second volume wasn't out yet. So I think this is one of the first comics that I probably read early on and really liked it back then, and then I really liked it this time around as well. Cool. Then let's jump into playlists. Some songs that we think that would be good for you, our dear listener, to have playing on the radio or on your iPod or on your Amazon Echo or whatever in the background while you read this book. I think mine just turned on. Let's start with Jason.
Bad to Be Good by Poison.
Nice. Mr. Todd.
Mine is Days Go By Dirty Vegas.
Oh, I remember that song. That's a good one. And then mine is Am I Evil, which is technically a cover, but I'm going to do the Metallica version off of the Garage Inc. album.
Love that song.
You would do the Metallica version.
Why wouldn't I? I mean, I did develop.
Exactly, that's my point.
Awesome.
I did do a Metallica holiday, by the way. Another report. Did I ever tell you about that, Jason?
No, I don't think
When
so.
I was in college.
February 13th.
Exactly. Todd still remembers, and some of my friends, including my friend Tyson, still will text me and wish me a happy Metallica Day.
Metallica Day.
And it was prepared for
awesome.
Valentine's Day. When I was, young and single and bitter, I would listen to Metallica all day and watch horror movies in preparation for Halloween or for Valentine's Day. That was my tradition, and so I had Metallica Day on February 13th. So, for those of you who want to also celebrate that, you are more than welcome to do so. Cool. I mean, we've gotten through all that. Does anybody have any final warnings they think people should know before we let them loose on to read this book?
I will give one.
Go for it.
Go ahead, Todd.
Oh, Ed.
You first.
Okay. Yes, it is a drawn comic book. Wow. I still got squeamish with one scene in here.
Yes, trigger warning, there is some fairly explicit, non-consensual sex.
Yeah, that's what I was going to warn about.
So
Yeah.
there's some of that. And even the violence. There's a scene with a shotgun in someone's face that is quite... I'm like, whoa!
I have a thought about that, by the way, but we'll get into that when we do the analysis.
Okay.
Because I think there's something very deliberate what's going on here, but we'll discuss that when we get in there.
Okay.
Cool. Does anybody else have anything else? I think that is a good warning to send people off by.
Nothing else on my end.
Okay. Cool. Well, then we're going to take a little break, and we're going to let you take a little bit of a break and go ahead and read this book. We all recommend that you should. Frankly, it is pretty awesome. And when we get back, we will spoil the living crap out of it, so you have been warned. And coming up, here's a little advertisement from one of our fellow Hello Sweetie podcasts. I don't remember which one it is off the top of my head right now. I'm sorry to say, but that's whatever next one is on the list. But I'm sure that they are wonderful, great human beings who do a great show. So we'll talk to you guys in a second.
While we take a break, here is a message from one of our fellow Hello Sweetie Network podcasts.
When you have kids, it's almost impossible to find time to catch up on all your geeky obsessions. Comic books, TV, movies, games. We get it. Geek Parenting Podcast understands your pain, and we are here for you. We're geeky parents just like you, and we come together once a week to talk about what it's like to raise your little geeklings while staying true to your fandoms. New episodes every week. Find Geek Parenting Podcast wherever you consume your podcasts. Follow us on social media at Geek Parenting Podcast. Sorry, Stefan.
Who wants to do the...
Not it.
I have to finish saying it first.
I'll do it. It's been a while
Okay.
since I've done it. I'll just do it.
Yeah. And this is an easy one to do, actually. As I was reading through it, I'm like, I could summarize this one too. But yeah, this is a good one. Well, it's cool, Todd. Go for it.
All right, Incognito, Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, and Val Staples on coloring. So I'll summarize this thing. I'm not going to do a page-by-page turn. The concept of it is it opens up and you've got a character that's in the middle of witness protection, used to be a supervillain, ratted out on his boss, and now he is a drone pushing paper. As life continues to suck, he starts doing some drugs just to make time go by, and he figures out, hey, I'm getting my powers back because he was on power suppressive drugs, because I'm getting stoned, and this is cool. And because he's bored with life and he finds actually helping people out is the same kind of rush as robbing people, he's a do-gooder. Unfortunately, by doing so, his actions are able to be picked up and recorded by the nefarious organization he used to work for. And they're coming back to get him. And his WITSEC people are going, what the hell are you doing? He's like, I'm not doing anything. And then the nefarious organization's first rat of minions show up. Things get out of hand and they do what they're not supposed to do. He kills them. Then the heavy hitters come in. And he runs away with his twin brother's ex. And they have some weird, creepy sex. And he goes back to where he learns he was born, and he's not has just one twin brother, but multiple. His other twin sibling, I guess.
So, yeah, his other identical sibling, or fellow clone.
His other identical sibling is not quite right, and is just a psycho crazy killer. He kills him, and he joins the good guys of going, hey, this sounds like a fun thing to do. My life's worth living again, and the end.
A couple of things I think just to add into that. One of the things,
please do.
One of the things he does learn is that he and his twin brother and the other sibling that he didn't know about, they were actually all part of a group of clones that were basically bodies for a superhero named Lazarus, who would never die. And then when they actually end up killing him, basically shooting him before he's able to transfer his consciousness into another one of his bodies, they then break in and find all of his clones. And so them being supervillains decide to try to use them for their nefarious reasons. Of the 26, only 3 survived. His name is Zack because he's the third of the last 3, X, Y, and Z. So his brother Xander is the one he knew about, but he didn't know about Yuri, who was the Y. And
of
Yuri
course,
is
the Russian is the scary one.
Of course. And Yuri also is fucking crazy. And one of the ways that they try to get him is they basically let Yuri loose and then try to blame it on Zack.
Yes.
So, and we were talking about the violence, especially specifically the gunshot to the eyes and that kind of thing. The thing is that their name was Overkill.
Yeah.
And all of the violence in the book, like the 2 brothers, it was Zack and Xander. Overkill. I think that a lot of the violence in here is to show how over-the-top superhero violence would actually be, because it's trying to take a place in reality where, they're covering up these super villains and things like that by saying it was a natural disaster or that kind of thing. And I think it was a deliberate choice to try to have this be a very visceral, like not comic book violence, but like really visceral, really in your face, like. Yeah, this would be really fucked up if it was really happening, kind of idea. And so that was sort of my thought on that. But I'm curious. Jason seems to agree with me.
Even when it shows Zack or Yuri punching someone to death, it's just a mess of blood and misshapen parts of a body that are left in the wake. It's very graphic.
And the transfer of that looks like it hurts really comes through. Oftentimes with violence, especially superhero violence, it's like everyone's in a bouncy house room and you're all just using blown up toys as your points of impact, and everyone's just so super durable, I suppose is the phrase they use. And in here it shows, though some might be, most people aren't, and the true side effects of being a peon among the others.
Yeah. Todd, what are your thoughts, since you were kind of already going on? Like, I'll let you sort of jump in with your 2 cents on this.
All right. So it's the Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips who are the focus of this. So it's got a very pulpy feel in the art to me. And so as we're watching this, and I was talking about it, is it still has that, if Sam Spade was a paper pusher, what would it be like? And that's definitely the tone at the beginning of the book, and that kind of folds its way throughout. And as we're watching this, he doesn't quite fit in. He's trying to do his thing. He's on drugs that suppress his super abilities. But he's like, I don't fit. He's trying to figure things out. And then he gravitates towards what he is. And what's interesting is you watch people in general, everyone's got their, it's intuition, but they gravitate towards things that they like and things that they do. Even if they repress memories or if they try and going to do something else, it's hard to change. And he seems to be trying to change. And he's like, this is just who I am. And this is where I feel alive. This is where I fit. And it's a person coming to accept themselves. So it's a story of acceptance and survival. And I think at the place, but they talk oftentimes stories are like man versus nature, man versus someone else, or man versus himself. There is a strong running theme of man versus himself and coming to accept. He's got these outside forces, but his biggest enemy in his acceptance is this is who you really are. And as the story ends, it's him going, this is who I am, and I'm going to accept who I am, and here we go.
He accepts who he is, but he also definitely grows and realizes what he no longer wants to be.
So he definitely he's a very dynamic character. He recognizes of the villainy that he much was a villainy, and he talks about, dude, I need to kill this guy because he's going to blow my cover. It's like, before I just kill him and leave my name on it, but now I need to figure out how to get away with it, and how the fuck am I going to do that without anyone knowing? And then he's got other people show up and just take care of that for him. And he comes to find out he's really good at the violence thing, and for whatever reason, he's just, it's like, well, I'm just really good at this, and he's flipping sides.
For me, I didn't necessarily completely, I get where you're coming with it, but I didn't completely necessarily think of it as he's just good at the violence. I think it was one of those things where he wasn't meant to have a average life. Like, he was meant, he just naturally in his bones was meant to live something higher and more extraordinary because he had these powers. He knew what that was like, and he couldn't go back to a mundane life.
I hear you. Is it also the flip side? I mean, the consciousness wasn't transferred, but Lazarus was the hero that got killed by the villains, right?
Yeah.
So here is this person that was grown by the villains of like, look, you're going to be a villain now because of nature versus nurture a little bit. So the nurture says you're going to be villainous because we have nurtured you to be sir. And his nature's like, I can definitely do this sort of thing, but I just kind of float back. And you look at this, he go into that the Lazarus side of things of the hero because it's a nature versus nurture. Yeah.
There's that possibility, or I think that maybe just living that larger than life extraordinary lifestyle was such a part of him that being on that, and also that the superhero versus supervillain are two sides of the same coin when compared to average people in this world. You know what I mean? And so maybe it's just one of those he needed to be living his life on a higher plane, and it didn't matter to him if he was on the good guy's side or the bad guy's side, but he couldn't live the life of an average. Literally a paper pusher. Literally he was an office delivery boy. He was literally pushing paper around an office all day.
Sure. And the drugs he was on was suppressing his powers, but he just felt like he was in this fog.
Yeah. He wasn't himself. And sort of combining both your 2 points of view on it, the violence, whether it was of a supervillain or superhero nature, was all that he had known. So that's what he was comfortably drawn towards. And then once he starts to get back into it again, when the drugs wear off, it didn't matter to him that he was technically doing superhero duties. It was just the violence that he was comfortable with. And that's who he sees himself as someone who can do these incredible things and isn't meant to push around those papers. Yeah.
Okay. Todd, do you have any more thoughts?
What's fun, I bring up the Sam Spade, you've got the style. At the same time, it is, they make reference to a meteor or spaceship, or they deliberately do not define it, and they say anyone who knows isn't talking. Comes into contact, creates these meta, super elevated beings, and the technology that comes along with it as well. So you still have this deco-ish kind of aesthetic going on, and then you've got Back to the Future flying cars built in with it too. And so it's not steampunk in that way, but it's kind of, here is a style from the past with futuristic things going.
Yeah, it's a pulp style. You know what I mean? Like it's a 50s pulp kind of idea.
And
yeah, no, for sure.
Sort of like a Buck Rogers thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. And it's a whole lot of fun. And I really enjoy that. And it feels like, oh, that's futuristic, yet it looks old and it fits so well. The art sells that so well. It doesn't feel like, oh, here's this old pulpy thing, and then you've got this goofy Star Wars thing like bolted onto the side of it. It was really rather seamlessly integrated and slowly introduced as it was going on at the same time. So it just goes through and you just completely accepted the visuals going on. Even the styles of costumes and his mask and everything else there, it felt very much, you know, people are like, oh, it's over the top, and yet it fits right in with style. So you don't have warring aesthetics is where I'm going.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I think it blends in something. I think it's introduced enough because, like, as you're reading through it, all of a sudden, like, you start with something that feels fairly realistic, and then it slowly opens you up to this idea of superheroes' existence and that kind of thing. And then as that gets through, by the time you're going down this road, it's what in theater we call willing suspension of disbelief, where. By the way, take a drink because I'm mentioning theater. That's a William rule. That's on our website. I took it off of the opening, but it's on our website.
Thank you, William.
Thank you, William. But like it's just this idea that you will believe that the actors are on stage are living in this rule, you know, or in this world. You'll give into like that and ignore the fact that you're in a theater. You know what I mean? And this is sort of like this idea too of like, you're sort of dragged into this world and you start believing in it that, yeah, they can throw in a flying car. And in any, like, if you were to read the first page and then jump to the flying car page, you'd be like, this is bullshit and this doesn't make any sense. But the way it sort of lures you down that path, by the time it's a flying car, you're like, okay, I get it. That makes sense. You know what I mean? If there was a superhero who was flying around in a Zeppelin shooting people and stuff like that, of course, his daughter would have a flying car, obviously. You know, so.
I think another interesting thing is the character of Amanda. Yes. She is a co-worker of his at his paper pushing job. Yeah. And I love they don't even say what the job is. It's just he's a file clerk.
Yeah, he literally pushes paper.
He's pushing, and they show him pushing paper, and you're like, it is so bluntly on the nose, and it's hilarious for it.
Well, and it's also, he says, I think the great line is there, organized paper in a world that's going paperless, or something like that. Like,
I'm becoming even more useless.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm becoming even more useless. And then you've got Amanda floating here, which is a co-worker, and she seems to be a bit of a looker or whatnot. And if you aren't someone that she deems that matters, she doesn't even refuses to acknowledge your existence. And the moment she goes, oh, you're someone worth acknowledging. And this is someone that while she was drunk, he had sex with her when he was wearing someone else's Santa costume. He saved her from being assaulted. And then she says, oh, you saved me. You didn't take advantage of me. Well, now take advantage of me. And he was kind of weirded out by that. And then he goes to find out she had staged this because something had happened previously and this girl would be damaged.
Yeah, she had sort of this thing for superheroes. So she would put herself in scary situations so the superhero would come up, save her, and then she would repay them with sex.
I didn't get that it was specifically for the superhero to show up, because she said
it may have just been her kink, and someone dressing up as a supervillain was enough for her.
Sort of. It didn't have to be a supervillain related thing, although she definitely did have that kink as well. It seemed that she just had the rape fantasy that she wanted to enact with the guy that she hired online, and Zack unknowingly stopped that. But she's got those two parts to her sort of her sexual agency is that she wants that kind of excitement and she wants that sort of sexual encounter, whether it is with a super powered person or of the rape fantasy. Yeah,
I mean, they implied that it came from having her be a witness to a superhero event. Yeah. May have been the indicating moment.
So there's definitely some trauma associated with it, but yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, cool. But yeah, I did appreciate that they expanded more on her character and her backstory, because when she's introduced as just the main character's rape victim, and personally speaking, as the one who had the most issues with Last of the Innocent and how it didn't really give the female characters a lot of agency. At least expanding on Amanda's backstory enough so you got another side to her character was I think a really good part of the story.
Some of the other women are not necessarily fully fleshed out, but they're more than. I mean, they're strong in their own right. They have their own thing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm blanking on her name. Well, there's Zoe, who is,
Zoe Zeppelin, and then there's Ava
Destruction.
Ava Destruction,
which is a great name, by the way.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Ava Destruction is a very interesting character, actually. I think worth discussing. I think Zoe's interesting as well, but Ava is interesting because she had like, and I don't know if it's true or not, like, because it sounds like she's kind of the girl who would just fuck with him just to make him crazy. But like, he's trying to figure out why, like, he's identical to his brother, and she ends up hooking up with his brother and staying with his brother, and so like, and then he's sort of going out hooking up with groupies to try to, you know, because he has a psychic link with his brother, so he can basically feel what his experience with Ava is like.
Yeah.
And to try to drown that out, he's doing everything he possibly can. And so at the end, he's like trying to figure out why she picked his brother over her, even though they're identical. And she claims that she flipped a coin, which, knowing her, that could both be true, but it could also be a fact of she's just saying it just to make him crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and you're never going to be quite sure which is true.
Well, what I liked about that, not only did it also showed another instance of consensual sex after the first, the first part, was he wakes up and he doesn't feel her next to him, and he's actually terrified that she's betrayed him and that she's set him up for something. And she goes outside and she's really just dealing with two punks who tried to rob the house of their minibar or something. But what I liked about that was here's this guy who grew up as a supervillain, and he's just now starting to come into his own a little bit and realizing that he may not want to be the villain. He just sort of wants to be whoever he wants to be. And when he wakes up and he's just been vulnerable with someone that admittedly he did actually have a lot of feelings for. And when you're vulnerable with someone and then you immediately think that they're going to betray you, that's personally speaking, that is a very paralyzing, terrifying thought.
Yeah.
And so at the end of that, when he realizes that she hasn't, it's also a very pivotal moment because he sees that she, as a supervillain, just wastes these two kids and kills them. And he realizes that it's not exactly who he wants to be either. He doesn't want that sort of part to be his identity. And I think that small moment of him waking up, being vulnerable, not wanting to be betrayed, and in that moment of vulnerability, seeing what a supervillain does, I think that's a very powerful character moment for me.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I can't expand on that any further. But I also, I mean, I would like to talk about Zoe as well, just a little bit, who I think is really interesting, who is sort of this strong superhero who keeps trying to kind of convince him. Like, she kind of reminds me of one of those like evangelical Christians who is sort of like, hey, isn't this fun? This is fun, right? Like, hey, being a hero is kind of fun, right? Like, and like trying to kind of convince him, like, hey, maybe you should be on the good side for a change, which I thought was interesting. She also has all the really cool toys.
She does.
And it's probably probably one of the few people from the government who seems to actually get what's going on and able to handle everything that happens.
Yeah. And she's also good. I like a lot of her quips too. Like, well, it's not every day you get to rip out your own heart.
And he's like, it's good to know that I actually have one.
Yeah, that was my favorite line. Yeah. Because he does start as literally a character who rapes someone and then has no regret. And then the end is him realizing he literally does have a heart. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he does have actually a pretty extreme arc.
Yes.
Through the course of the book, but it never feels jarring.
No, it's well done. It's gradual. It's motivated by what happens around him, and to others around him. I mean, even the death of his friend Farmer, he didn't even go through with killing him because he realized he kind of liked the guy. And I think it's all just him.
He even goes like he's this raging asshole trying to take advantage of me, and like I'm a genie in the lamp, but I still like
him. Yeah.
And I mean, the thing too, though, is like it's like I said before. Like if you were to read the first page and the last page, you wouldn't buy it because like you're like, there's no way that same character goes that extreme.
Yeah,
you know,
completely.
But it sort of works through the whole thing.
Yeah.
So cool. Does anyone else have any thoughts, or do we want to do some cocktails?
Cocktails it is.
Cocktails it is. Cool. Well, Mr. Todd, what is your cocktail?
You know, I've been thinking about this one, and it's So we've got cocktails and stuff at different points in the story, what goes along with it. And I was really thinking as
Hi,
like,
Bruce,
you're a good guy, Bruce.
He's interested to hear your cocktail.
He's interesting to hear my cocktail. So, but this is a guy that's just trying to drown away and in this, just the stupor of it all. Mm-hmm. And he kind of felt himself stuck, and he's like, I'm joining WITSEC because what other choice do I have? And life sucks, and I wanted to go all the way. So this is kind of time for an adios, motherfucker.
Oh, of course. Your go-to.
Go-to. I mean, but it's a little bit there because if you're doing that adios, it's like, what's the point? So with the adios, motherfucker, and this one going on, or it's also known as like a bon voyage. It's it's got a half ounce of Captain Morgan's rum, quarter ounce of vodka, quarter ounce tequila, quarter ounce gin, a quarter ounce of blue curacao, 2 ounces sweet and sour mix, and 2 ounces of lemon lime soda. So what you're going to want to do is add everything but the lemon lime soda to a shaker with ice in there, shake the shit out of it, pour it in a tall hurricane glass, add some ice to that, and top it off with your lemon lime soda. And then just drink about 3 of them. Adios.
Well, Mr. Jason, what is your cocktail?
Mine is just called the Zeppelin. It doesn't have a lot of psychology behind it, but it just sounds delicious, so I'll drink it. It's got 2 ounces of Godiva liqueur, 2 ounces of grenadine, and 1 ounce of Southern Comfort. Just pour it all into an old-fashioned glass, either neat or over ice, and enjoy.
Mine is called The Crime and Punishment, which looks fancy as all hell, and it has some really fancy names to it, but it was seemed like something kind of fun. So The Crime and Punishment, it is 1 ounce of Larceny Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 1 ounce of Aperol, 1 ounce of Punt Miss, I don't know what that is, and 1 dash of Regan's Orange Bitters No. 6. You add all the ingredients to a mixing glass, and filled with ice. You stir, don't shake, and then you strain into a cocktail glass. Does anybody else have any more thoughts they want to go on? Any parting thoughts?
In reference to the drinks here, I was watching a YouTube video about it's how to drink, by the way. It's a pretty good channel. It's funny. But he goes kind of crazy, but that's the point of the channel about it, is he's talking about making your own grenadine. And so he will complain about store-bought grenadine. And he goes, really, it's not that bad. You just need to make it yourself. And he goes through the whole process of how to take pomegranate juice and get it juiced, and how to get pomegranate molasses, and then cooking it, and then cooling it, and then going about how it tastes, how it's better. But the whole thing is really an intense process. And he's like, really, it's not that bad. And it feels like someone describing the process of making Coq au vin going, I just don't understand why anyone would ever store buy anything. Just make it all yourself. And you're like, dude, I get your channel is on how to do this, but really, that's a bit much.
Yeah.
So that would be my thought about that.
Everyone needs a hobby.
Everyone needs a hobby.
Ours just happen to be reading comic books and drinking.
So, but this is where going, on drinking on that. I'm like, yes, you can shy away from the cheap store-bought stuff, but there is some stuff that's pretty good that you can just pick up.
It's sort of that hipstery thing where, like, everyone starts writing weird books and, or weird bikes and all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's always going to be people who are like, oh, you always should make your own whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just how the world works, I guess. Everyone has their better secret way of doing things. Actually, I found something really funny. I don't know how much I can leave this in, actually. There is this thing about Walt Disney had his own chili recipe that was always supposed to be so amazing, and everyone talked about how great it was. And for the employees at Disneyland on Disneyland's birthday, they make Walt's chili for everybody, right? And like they talk about like as if it's
I remember having that. Yeah.
Treat. Yeah. You know what Walt Disney fucking did? What? He took 2 different cans of chili and combined them. 2 different brands, 2 different companies, just took 2 different chilies, combined them, and said, hey, I have a special recipe for chili. And everyone's like, oh, this is amazing. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, it's only actually marked in like a couple different places that's actually what happened, but that's
so my small work story from working at Marvel. Every once in a while, because we did actually have Welch chili, I think once every week. I don't remember which days it was. I mostly remember Poke days were Wednesday. But every once in a while, the cooks at the I can't remember what the cafe was called, like Kingswell Cafe, I think, at Prospect. Anyway, they would have a tasting table of a bunch of different kinds of chili, and it would range from sort of like a Southwest Texan chili to like a North Carolina chili to like a Kansas barbecue chili, and you get to try all the different chilies, and they were just some of the best I've ever had. I don't know why they never actually served those instead of Waltz chili, but I guess Waltz chili is cheaper.
Well, I'm sure it's very cheap because it's just 2 cans of chili that you combine.
Hormel and Stag mix.
Did you look at it?
No idea. I just picked 2 brand names that I know.
I was like, it wouldn't surprise me if that's exactly what it was. I was like, oh, did you look it up? But
yeah.
Well, cool. Do we want to go into final grades then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So for the writer, for Mr. Ed Brubaker, what is your grade, Mr. Jason?
You want to do self-contained first, or?
Yeah, you're right. For self-contained, damn, I have it written in front of me and everything. I'm using 2 screens today so that I can see it.
I believe the prop you need to do is drink fucker.
That's on my old computer. I mean, I can still probably find it, but it's a pain in the ass. Anyway, I fucked that up. Anyway, so self-contained.
For self-contained,
what is your what's your vote,
I will give it
Jason?
an A. It has a beginning, middle, and end, even though the ending says literally maybe this is just the beginning, which does make me want to read the rest of it. But for self-contained, I think it's still an A.
Mr. Todd.
I completely agree. So it was with definitely you've got the 3 parts, and as it goes forth, it feels very satisfied, and it opens up for the potential of more, but it's not needed for what's happening. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I will also go with an A. I think I read it originally as it was just 1, and then it became 2, and I was really excited for the second one to come around. Okay, for writing, for Mr. Ed Brubaker, what is your grade, Jason?
It is an A. I'm very pleased with the improved agency that the female characters have in this as compared to Last of the Innocent.
Mr. Todd?
I loved it. It's an A. All the characters are fleshed out. Even the annoying Ajax was... I totally got into that character, and I'm like, I know exactly who that fucker is. Mm-hmm. And even if you have as minor of a character as that, and you know who they are, and all of them felt so full, I mean, way to go. And the arc that it went through, and how it brought you forth at the beginning, you thought it was this one thing, and near the end, it was completely something else entirely. It was fantastic. It's an A.
I agree with all of that, so I will go also with an A. So then for art, for Mr. Sean Phillips, and color by Val Staples. Todd, what is your grade?
I'm going to give it an A-. I thought it was wonderful. It went through. It married the different ideas together. It was very consistent. Nothing felt jarring, or it wasn't one of those, here's the guest artist of the week. What is this? So it's an A-. I really enjoyed the stuff.
I'm going to go with an A, actually, just because I am not necessarily always an art guy. I feel like I'm more of a story guy, and I found myself several times looking at the art going, wow, this is really great.
I'll also say some of that gratuitous violence made me physically uncomfortable. Yeah. I'm like, oh.
Yes. Which is impressive to do with the still image that's drawn. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Right. And you look at that, and that shotgun to the face and the eyes and all of that. You just look at that and you just went, oh. So,
yeah.
Way to go.
2 kids with their heads blown off.
Well, Mr. Jason, what's your grade?
Mine is also an A. And even though we didn't touch on this, it's sort of similar to how Phillips handled some of the sex scenes in Criminal. They were sexy without being sensationalized or exploitative of the women. So I found it very tasteful, appropriate, and just really good to look at.
Yeah, awesome. For overall grade, I'm going to go with an A. I really, really dug this book the second time around that I've read it, and I loved the shit out of it. I thought it was really awesome. Mr. Todd, what is your grade?
It's an A. It totally holds up. It's a few years old at this point, and it doesn't matter at all. So there doesn't feel like it's dated in any kind of way, and it's just great. So yeah, it's an A.
Cool. And Mr. Jason?
Mine is an easy A with Emma Stone.
Ah, nice. That requires no math on my behalf. So that is a grade point average of a 4.0. So that is an A grade overall for us, which is pretty awesome for our GPA. Cool. Next week, what are we doing next week?
The Fade Out.
You'll love that.
This is a great book. Yeah, I'm excited for you to read this, Jason.
Yeah, me
This
too.
is actually all about a Hollywood screenwriter who gets roped into a conspiracy involving the death of a Hollywood starlet during the Blacklisted era.
Yes, nice.
Nice.
So,
I'll be interested in this because we're just doing the first of the 3 trades, right?
It's self-contained. Will be very interesting. Yeah,
That will be interesting because I remember reading this and I read all 3 like within 2 days. I'm like,
wow.
I've got to go.
I was reading this as it came out, so I was reading it and then going, "Shit, what happens next?"
So yeah, there we go. There.
Awesome. Does anybody have any recommendations for this week?
I do.
Go for it.
Awesome.
Yeah. I've been listening to a D&D podcast called Dames and Dragons. It's just, similar to this podcast. It's the opposite of a sausage fest, though, but it's a bunch of friends playing D&D, and they're all just really, really good and close with one another and often imitate each other's voices. They just have a great rapport with one another. They even joke at the end of the first episode they were going to call it ADHD ND, and it fits because it's just wonderful and unexpected, and it's really nice to listen to.
Cool. Yeah. I'm going to recommend a book by Derek Nguyen. Is that Nguyen? How do you say that? Nguyen. Okay.
Yep, the guy's Vietnamese.
Yes, I know, and I see the name spelling because one of my favorite players on LAFC is Lee Nguyen, and I never know how to pronounce it. And I always just call him Lee because I don't want to say it wrong.
So here's what's terrible about Vietnam spelling, and I'm going to rant here for a moment.
Okay.
It used to be French Indochina, so you take Asian sounds and let the French decide how that gets to be spelled. So
yeah,
this is a group of people that don't have words for the number 80 or 90, and they just deciding some other back-assward ways to do it's the right way to go. I took 4 years of French, and it is fucking stupid and awful. And you take the stupid and awful way of spelling things, and you give it to the French. So there's accent aigus and graves and little chapeaux and circumflexes everywhere. And I deal with this shit at work all the time, and it still looks like fly shit. But Nguyen, it's the Smith or Johnson of the Vietnamese people. So you would pronounce it as if you spelled it Newin. Nguyen.
Okay, Nguyen. Okay,
there you
got it. Thank you.
Yep.
So that's a lesson for me, kids, because frankly, I needed to know that. Anyway, but it's by Nguyen, who also did the art for Descender with
Lemire.
Oh yeah.
Jeff Lemire, who I really like. But he did this book called Little Gotham, and it's just cute as hell. Like, it's just like, I just can't describe it any other way as cute. Like, basically it takes on almost every holiday, like the first trade does, and it goes through every different holiday. And it's like a cute little story where the villains and Batman, they sort of fight, but they sort of get along. So it's like, they're not necessarily totally toddlers, but they're kind of toddlers kind of thing. Like, they're drawn like they're little. And so, like, it's just cute. I can't really say anything else, but like that it's just really kind of fun and cute and endearing. And it's from some of the heavier stuff that we read. It's sometimes nice to have a nice little palate cleanser. And it's also kind of nice to have a book that I could potentially, actually, and I completely and utterly plan on buying and sending to my nephew. Because I think that he would enjoy the crap out of it. So I think it's just really fun and cute and definitely worth checking out your time. So, Mr. Jason, you already have a recommendation. Yep. Todd, what is your recommendation?
Well, to a little bit of play off of what you've been talking about there, I've got some nieces, and they expressed interest in reading something, and they're tweens, teenager tweens, they're in their age range. And I lent them 2 books, and 2 days later they brought them back, and they asked for the next volumes, and so I'm feeling like I'm drug dealers. But they're on Runaways with Brian K.
Oh, yeah.
So, and they're also reading Mech Cadet U by Greg Pak. So, he only has 2 trades of that out right now, but that one's actually really good and a lot of fun as well. But
I think Greg Pak's going to be at WonderCon when we're out there.
You know, I'm looking forward to WonderCon, and I'm going to see what's left of DC after this week. So.
Why? What's going on with DC?
Have you not been hearing about that? Oh, there are layoffs and restructuring and a whole lot of that stuff going on lately. They're only, right now, DC's only publishing 22 titles at this time.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
So I guess at their height, they were at like 52, 50. The new 52, they had 52 titles going. Right now it's 22. What's interesting to watch, total volume in sales of total copies sold for new comics is not that much moved. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of what they discovered, they published a lot more titles, and they are now they're publishing fewer titles, but total copies moving is still about the same for them. Mm-hmm. So is it just a market capacity issue? I'm not sure. But yeah, so there's some interesting things shaking out at DC right now.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Interesting. We could have a philosophical discussion about that because that's part of the reason why I chose the major that I chose, but that's a totally different issue.
So yeah, so that's going on, and then I guess they also announced that Jessica Jones season 3 is going to be the last, and Netflix is done with original Marvel content.
Yep. And instead, Marvel TV is going to be doing The Offenders, a group of animated TV shows.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, has that been officially announced?
Yeah.
Okay. As you told me, and I think that's really interesting, working on animated is actually, they don't pay as much as they pay for live action.
Correct. It's a different set of unions and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So they're not Writers Guild then?
Well, I mean, it depends on what deal is structured, but most animated shows have a different, or under a different agreement between the studios. Yeah.
So you wouldn't or would go take one of those jobs?
I mean, if they paid me the same rate, I would go on to it, but we'll see.
Okay. Yeah. Is there an offer out there?
Not yet, no. But I haven't talked to my friends in development in a while, so I got to reach out to them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, sweet. If they don't mind me keeping a day job, I'll write cartoons. I'm fine with that. Well, then that'll do it for this week. Thanks for joining us, and join us next week for the Fade Out. Specifically, Jason, you make sure you join us because that is definitely within your wheelhouse.
I will be there.
We need one of the Hollywood elite to let us know how accurate it is about being a Hollywood writer.
Yeah, I'll have all the insight that I can muster.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you on the flip side.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Please rate us on whatever service you listen on. And remember, at least we're not cinema queens.